Thank you very much, Johnny. And of course, thanks to everyone for joining us today. I'm super excited now to lead into our fireside chat. So I'm sure a lot of you are joining us and looking forward to this fireside chat, and I am as well. So I'm excited to be leading this with Tareq and Amin. Tareq, hello. Great to have you here.
Nice to be with you, Peter.
Good. I know for most people, particularly who are looking at what's going on in telecom and what's going on in the region, that they know who you are, they know what's going on with Rakuten and Rakuten Symphony, but maybe just a bit of a quick introduction, and then we can lead into all the questions I've queued up.
Absolutely. So I am Tareq Amin. I am the CEO of Rakuten Mobile. I call that my day job, and my night job now, I'm the CEO of Rakuten Symphony, which is our platform company. And again, very, very happy to be here with you today, Peter.
Yeah, two CEO jobs. Obviously, your time is very, very in demand. So thanks for joining us. And I'm just going to dig into the questions right away. So the topic of the day is obviously digital transformation. And so let's start off with a really sort of top level question. I think early in my career, I was taught that when you think about any big initiative a company does, that it's done for one of two reasons: either to make money or save money. Now the reality, you can throw in regulation, and oftentimes may not make money or save money, but you got to do something because of regulation. But let's not think about that. From your perspective, what's the important part as you look at what you're doing within Rakuten, what you're doing broadly through the industry? What's the more important part? Is it making money or saving money?
Well, I think you need to look at it actually in both ways. I don't think one or the other. And, Peter, actually, if I tell you one of the primary reasons I've decided to join Rakuten is coming into the venture of building yet another greenfield after building and helping build Reliance Jio. For me, I was extremely excited about the possibility of working for an internet services company. So think about a company that is actually in internet services, wanting to interconnectivity. So I thought that this company really understood the terms and definitions of digital assets. Of course, when we talk about digital transformation, it already is a well-established company in different verticals, from e-commerce to travel, and various fintech services in Japan. So I was intrigued about learning more about the culture of an internet service company. I call them even a hyperscaler that wants the interconnectivity. So my view is, when we think and talk about digital transformation, I don't think you could think about it in the form of just about saving money. I think it is an amazing opportunity as well as to accelerate monetization through transformation. You drive agility, better customer experience, all the things that I think we know that are a critical part of this journey, as many players in the telco space consider and think through their transformation as they go from where they are today to what I think and believe where they want to be, which is a full digital service provider.
So it's interesting, you call out a few things there, in part just based on the work that Rakuten has done, but you mentioned customer experience. Obviously customer experience fits into the making money side of things, right? The better experience you can deliver, the more you can hold on to customers, perhaps the better you can monetize them. But how do you think of digital transformation linked to that customer experience? Is there a tangible link there to actually improving what you can deliver for them and making the services better for them?
Absolutely. I mean, let me take a very specific area. Within the telco industry, if you look at customer support as an example, we've struggled over the decades talking about the concept of customer experience management as the new goal and objective, to move away from measuring network experience on I call it a counter-based approach, to now I'm measuring customer experience. And to this extent, how do I know what your experiences look like? And honestly, my honest view, no matter how much work has happened, I still don't think we are close to that dream. A dream where every customer is treated as a unique identity, and it's not an aggregation of statistics on a network to know what his or her experiences might look like in the network. When you call customer support and you wonder, did this customer had a good throughput experience, video experience, latency experience? I think we've done an okay job. I still don't think we are close to where one would desire. So, ideally, if you really think about it, before you call customer care, I should know exactly what you're calling for. What are the things that are really worrisome about the experiences that we're providing to you? Whether it is something due to your billing experience, your invoices, your network experience. And so Peter, don't misunderstand that we have made good progress. I just think that, honestly speaking, it's not good enough yet. I think the ability for us to get a comprehensive 360-degree view about the customer is still a work in progress in my view. Even within my own organization, this is a daily battle, a battle to improve and understand the customer on a per unit basis, meaning individually and not an aggregation of KPIs that are really cluttered in the network experience. So it is clearly evident to me that if we address this part, and if you passionately care about the customer and his and her journey during the transactions, touching your network day in and day out, I think, of course, that's going to improve your revenue. It's going to improve your churn. It's going to improve the lifetime value of a customer. So I think we made okay work, but I still, in my view, not good enough to where we need to be.
No, that's such a great point. And I'll say it is when we hear echoed from a lot of our other customers and operators around the world, even in the most basic form, right? This idea of 5G is so important because 5G can enable some great new capabilities for customers. But if we can't prove to them that they're getting what we're selling them in terms of those no capabilities, right? How can we actually get value from that, right? So we need to have that visibility, and it's a great point. But it leads me in then to the conversation, I guess, of 5G. I mean, so 5G is often sort of, it's called out as being unique from previous generations of technologies because it can support new verticals with new capabilities. And we know we're doing a lot of enterprise digital transformation with 4G already, but really 5G can deliver some new capabilities, or at least that's the story. So from your perspective, obviously Rakuten Mobile rolled out the 4G network. 5G is an important part of what you're doing, not just in Japan, but helping 5G, helping other operators around the world launch 5G. I mean, where do you see that connection? Yeah. Is it just sort of is it coincidental? Hey, we're talking digital transformation, there's 5G, or is there a real connection between what 5G can do there?
Yeah, so I think Peter, if you look at our journey to building, the foundation of our infrastructure in Japan, I think for us it was really, really clear that it's not necessarily the generation that is providing the killer application for us. Maybe the killer application for us is our platform. That's one thing that I think differentiated quite a bit our approach to how we constructed and built 4G and 5G. And tomorrow we're, as we're today excited about 5G, I mean, as you have seen, well ahead of even 6G, we're starting to talk about 6G. So I think the killer use case that I saw was not necessarily yet the consumer or enterprise use cases. Maybe the first thing I thought we had to address in Japan is the fundamental building blocks of how networks are built, engineered, and operated. Maybe that was the killer use case for us, is the idea of taking the infrastructure build out from a complex one that requires significant investment in hardware to one that is a significant investment in software. So I think maybe for us, I would tell you this is where we departed from the rest of the world on how we build a 5G infrastructure. Rakuten Mobile has really been built on the essence of software. And maybe that was the key push that I wanted everybody from my own team to accomplish. And I think to a large extent, we are extremely delighted and happy that the mission around building a reliable, cloud native, completely virtualized infrastructure has been accomplished. Now, the truth about 5G, of course, we all celebrate it as a great technology. And there is no doubt, no debate that 5G is just an amazing technology. But if you look at where we are today, and is there a killer app today that has been materialized that takes advantage of this elegant network architecture, the latency that it could provide, the truth is we're not there yet today. I mean, we're talking a lot about possibilities of what we could do. I personally believe that we could see breakthroughs in enterprise use case a lot earlier than we would see breakthroughs in consumer use cases. So while I want to also celebrate the industry excitement about 5G, and no doubt about it, but I also want to be pragmatic that we still have to discover, not as an operator, but an ecosystem as a whole, including entrepreneurs, startups that needs to come through and give us some paths and insight of what 5G could be all about. And maybe the last thing I would love to hear your thoughts also, Peter, on this. See, today we talk in 5G in terms that I think is also maybe not necessarily the right way, right? We celebrate the success of hitting a gigabit per second. But is it truly that is the right metric to how we define 5G is? Well, if I think and I understand a bit or something about this technology, maybe we should talk about it from a different point of view. We should celebrate the possibilities of what ultra low latency could provide to future applications that are still being thought through, what ultra low latency could mean for factories and enterprises. So I am personally a bit frustrated that all what I see in social media and anywhere else, we're still talking about speed as the measurement of success. And I really tell you, I think that's a wrong measurement in the 5G era. And especially, by the way, even when we evolve to 6G in the future, I assure you that the world will change from speed perspective to edge and ultra low latency application becomes the dominant discussion. And so I'm super optimistic, but I still think we have a lot of work to be done. And it's not something that we as operator communities could solve on our own. I think this is an ecosystem creation that needs to come together to realize the elegance and beauty of this new platform and the access network that gets created with this technology.
No, it's a super great point. I mean, and it's interesting. I mean, it's something that lament might not be the appropriate word, but was having this conversation with some colleagues just the other week, looking at it's funny. It's 2022, and we're still seeing on a weekly, every other week basis some new announcement of we've hit a speed record, and oftentimes it's we've hit a speed record with this much CA or an uplink, or this doesn't look like it's the fastest number, but it's the fastest number when you're only aggregating two bands, or the fastest number with two bands on the uplink or millimeter wave. And so I think you're right. You do still see a lot of that discussion. I think it is partly how the industry knows how to market itself, I think, to some extent, right? We have this history of speeds and feeds which take place in the infrastructure side of things. Vendors talk about their fastest router. I think operators, it's how they think. It's sexy sometimes for consumers. So I 100% agree, and there's a larger value in terms of what we can do in terms of slicing, in terms of edge, in terms of the capabilities, which I guess then leads me to sort of another question, because I definitely see this sort of that 5G is important, but it's less about 5G and maybe more about what we're doing with it. I mean, as part of the push, not just around 5G, but 4G, Rakuten Mobile, and now with Rakuten Symphony, open has been a big part of the way you look at this. You've been driving Open RAN. If we look at Rakuten Symphony and the way that you'll be, hosting different capabilities, obviously this open nature is at its core. I mean, how do you see the link between open, and I include sort of the cloudification of telco functions, right? Because when you have a cloud platform, it's essentially open to hopefully to multiple different functions. How do you see that linked to digital transformation and 5G? Is there a connection there, or do they need to go together?
I would say 100%. There's a massive connection, and I would tell you in general. I mentioned this story many times before. See, we as human beings gets inspired by industries that we enjoy reading about. I personally get inspired, not all the time, talking about what is happening in telco. Of course, that's important to me, but I also want to learn to these vertical adjacent industries that are doing things at a remarkable speed, remarkable agility. If I look at the internet services companies in the US, an Amazon, a Google, a Facebook, or Meta, and to a certain extent, Apple and others, I got extremely inspired by a lot of things that they do that are really, really different than the telecommunication industry in general. I got inspired by how they run their operations. I got inspired by the level of agilities they do. I got inspired by the simplification on simple things like, the commodity appliance they use are standardized, they're common, they're not hundreds of them. Their software has been done and disaggregated from day zero on microservices. Kubernetes, think about how Kubernetes, that became now the de facto accepted infrastructure for cloud virtualization environments, started as an open source project. My view is, if you saw all of this happening in an industry that has experienced phenomenal growth in revenue, in customer adds, why we as mobile operators could not learn that maybe we should take lessons learned from that playbook, if you will. It is okay to learn from outside of our industry. What is the possibilities if we open our mind? Now, for me, I thought before we talk even Open RAN, because everybody thinks that the story of Rakuten was about Open RAN, but it's far more than that. Open RAN is a small module of many things that happened to get us to where we are today. The first fundamental building blocks that I think that came to my mind is cloud. So the cloud was really, really important, but the cloud architecture that we wanted is one that is really horizontal, meaning I wanted to control all the workload applications in top, whether the cloud is deployed at a far edge in a regional data center or central data center. We needed this to be common. This cloud needed to sit on common infrastructure. By the way, again, no massive creativity other than saying, well, it worked in hyperscalers. Let me just copy that. I don't need to really worry about how to make it work. I just need to go through this journey and learn it. Now, why I say that is important in the context of digitization and as 5G comes in. Now, when you see the network functions, and yes, they are complex, and yes, they are different than IT applications. But when you start to see how they get elegantly onboarded on this cloud, the simplicity of operation, the simplicity of orchestration, if done right, then your mind open up and said, well, it'll be interesting if I get all these other IT applications to join on board, where I could truly have convergence of telco and IT sitting on the same cloud. So in Rakuten Mobile, I decided to build within Symphony, a slew of digital applications that you can't classify them as telco applications, such as knowledge management system today, which is part of our billing system. We build internally our customer relationship management, even procurement, financial tools. I build all of them. And I build them honestly for the purpose of knowledge acquisition. I just wanted to understand, can we accomplish this dream and idea where I take complex telco applications and my IT applications, can I really put them on my same cloud and deploy them within my same fabric, within my same data centers? And, this is the marvelous discovery for us, was what a phenomenal intersection. Yes, they do have different way of working, and they are different in the nature that complex telco workload might require specific requirement on the hardware infrastructure that IT applications don't need, but the possibility of convergence is very, very real, and the efficiencies to be realized by combining these two elements is massive. And so think about, I'll give you one example, maybe to close my thought on this. So if I look at the totality of an enterprise, see, the reason that I still wanted to retain the work in Rakuten Mobile while still looking at Symphony as a platform, I wanted to really drive this experiment, I call it, where I today have control over my organization. I could work with my team and say, can we use across engineering, customer support, marketing, and sales organization, for example, a common workflow engine. Now think in the context of just this simple statement. Maybe in the past, the horizontal silos that would exist in the organization, you would require different digital tools to manage their business. And now I started to push this idea to say, well, now I have this elegant 5G cloud infrastructure. Can I start putting IT applications that are common across all my different business unit within my organization. And this is what I am discovering, that the efficiencies is unprecedented. What I saw in terms of unification between, let's say, sales, marketing, support organization, and the engineering by unification of platforms and application was just tremendous. And this is just, I look at this internal, and I can't even start to tell you what the opportunity would be external as we get better to start thinking about different services and platforms that we could market and sell on top of our internal cloud that we have built in Rakuten Mobile. So yes, I do think that they need to go hand by hand. I think if an operator wants to be a full digital platform enable, a digital service provider, I think cloud becomes the essence of what they do. And then everything else into the cloud becomes the building blocks you need, including Open RAN and the various activities with core and transport and so on and so on. But it's definitely not just about Open RAN. It's much bigger than that to go from where we started 4 years ago till where we are today.
Yeah, and I think it's an important reminder, right? And that's why, I know cloud doesn't have to be open, right? But when we think cloudification, thinking about it in terms of openness is critical. And I would just double down on that point of looking at adjacent industries, other industries. I think we all learn so much. And you talk about looking at ISPs and cloud providers. I would take it a step further, right? Going and looking at the verticals that we hope to work with. You can learn so much from every now and then getting outside of our industry. But I think we also know that sort of goes without saying that a lot of us within the telco industry, we are insular, right? And we focus on our own industries, we focus on our own operations. And so, that leads to some sort of inertia, right? Inertia of telcos doing what they do. And there's a lot been made of the value of, let's say, greenfield versus brownfield. If you're a legacy operator with a lot of operations, you have regulators who are making sure that you have uptime that remains consistent. You get in trouble if you experiment and something goes wrong and whatnot. How do you see this for operators that don't have the benefit of being like a Rakuten Mobile and being able to build that and sort of come at this? And you obviously took this view of yes, there would have been silos in other organizations, but we're going to look at horizontal platforms as you talked about. If I'm an operator who, that ship has sailed, right? I've already got those horizontal silos. How should I think about that open side of things and maybe replicate some of what you're doing? And obviously you don't want to give them too many tips, but what suggestions do you have for helping them do better with digital transformation?
No, quite the contrary, Peter. I would love nothing else but to find our industry advance and move from where it is today. I have nothing but huge respect to the telecom world, because it's not easy. By the way, it really isn't easy. I've had the privilege to build networks fundamentally from the foundation of going and seeking sites to building the radio side, transport, and core. So I understand how difficult it is. However, I would tell you, I think if I give a simple advice to all my colleagues and the industry as a whole, I think we need to start by conviction and courage. Yes, takes a bit of risk, but you also have to realize that I think time, unfortunately, is not in our side. If we don't evolve to become far more software-driven organization, I think then we have relinquished the possibility and the dream of us offering advanced services beyond just basic connectivity. I don't know if I'm speaking out of line when I say I think most people don't just want to be a dumb pipe. I think my feeling is a lot of CXOs I talk to realize that there need to be a much more better benefit a mobile operator can offer to its consumer beyond just saying, look, here's my data rate, my tariff on data, and being creative and smart about how we package this. So when I started in Rakuten in 2018, many people said, look, of course it's greenfield, it was easy for you, but what the truth is, of course, it wasn't simple. Maybe the simplest thing for me was if I picked a traditional vendor, my life would have been much easier, by the way. This journey has not been easy at all. It's been challenging. But to be very honest with you, I mean, deep down inside me, I was really, really frustrated that I looked at our ecosystem. And I have, again, this is not a criticism of our supplier at all that exists today, but I looked at it, I said, I need to open my mind to understand what to do different from what happened in the last 30 years of our life in telco. Since 1981, we've been chasing nothing but these hardware replacement projects. And I think maybe time is of the essence to recognize that even if you're a brownfield operator, the first thing that I think you have to start with before we talk about organization and skill sets and everything else in that is leadership team conviction that this is needed. And it's not an optional thing, it's a mandatory thing for survivability. This is what you need to do in order to compete against these adjacent industries that are well entrenched, by the way, in your business. It's imminent that it will happen. And I'm not saying anything that is, again, out of line, because you could see what happened in the original SMS revenues as OTT players came in, that got eroded. I mean, this is a fact. So if people feel that being just a connectivity player gives you comfort because you own this infrastructure, I think maybe my advice is it's maybe not necessarily the right thinking today. We should start with that fundamental belief that yes, transformation is difficult. However, we're going to take some calculated risks, and the risk of to go from current architecture to a fully digitized platform architecture in which cloud becomes absolutely part of its essence. I think it just becomes really, really critical for the organization. And then the second, which is really important, is the construct of the new organization is going to be a challenging task, no doubt. So for me, probably the best advantage that I had is not the fact that we were a greenfield in the architecture and the technology, but actually the best advantage, greenfield in the mentality of the employees that I recruited. So I had the opportunity to really handpick and evaluate who is going to be on my leadership team, evaluate the construct of the top of mix between subject matter experts in telco versus software developers, and really balance this very, very carefully. So I think that is the part I acknowledge really, really easy. And if I had an existing organization, the part that I would spend a lot of energy in, and I'm sure a lot of companies are doing it already, is a significant investment in upskilling my existing resources, the creation of a much aggressive path to bring highly skilled fresh grads, IT from top IT universities. For me, anywhere in the world I could hire them. I never had geography restriction, and I think this is another thing I'll give an advice to is hiring for tomorrow resources. For me, it no longer has geography of boundaries anymore. That is gone. So I have about 66 nationalities that work in my team. My average age is about 34 years old today within Symphony. And for Rakuten Mobile, it's even a bit younger than this. And this formula really, really worked well. All the technology pieces, I assure you, is secondary to the topics that I hit with you today, Peter. One, fundamental belief and courage that this is a path that one must evolve to. And then the second is the organization and skill sets that are needed to run and manage this new digital business of tomorrow. And the technology is just secondary. I don't think that there is any issues. We as professionals cannot find solutions to overcome the problems. But I would first really start with the building blocks that I think are critical for future success, which is conviction, belief, courage, and then organization.
No, that's, and I think it's such an important reminder. I mean, obviously, so much of the focus when people talk about what you're doing and look at what you're doing, look at the technology, but that fundamental reminder that you need C-suite management driving these changes because they're not easy, and then you need the people to help execute on those. I think particularly with the pandemic, the great attrition, whatever we want to call it, obviously we know that resourcing has been critical. I'd imagine doing something cool and exciting and new has helped you bring in good people.
Oh my God, Peter!
Made your life a little bit easier?
I mean, look, I'm blessed. I'm really, really blessed. I personally like to do my own recruiting. So I'd be really honest with you. I think now what is happening is I just discovered that we have such amazing talent in this industry. They are just been all what they wanted. Give them the opportunity. So the inbound for me is massive. I mean, it is massive. I get more interests worldwide to come join us because they really want to be part of this journey. So Peter, I am extremely blessed and lucky that recruiting for us has been relatively a non-eventful activity, because I just think that people want to be part of this technology and disruption that we're doing.
Great. Well, that is a great note to end on. I think tons of lessons for everyone. Thank you again. I know your time is precious. We really, really appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much.
It's great talking to you.